From 1904 to 1915, when motorized apparatus replaced the beloved fire horses. The name of the third horse is lost in history. Although little information remains about Dec and Dan, each of the stories attributed to them, here are documented accounts to actual fire horses who served in firehouses large and small throughout the country. Sadly, their account of their days is finally all too true.
It is the thoroughly modern mid-1920s. Ethel Jackson, wife of Santa Ana firefighter Monty Jackson, finds her daughter Etta and niece Dorothy swooning over a well-worn copy of Black Beauty by Anna Sewell.
Oh, Dorothy, aren't horses magnificent creatures? I knew you would love Black Beauty as much as I did. It was Mother's favorite book when she was a girl, too.
Why, they certainly are magnificent creatures, girls, and sometimes heroic as well. No one knows that better than your father, Etta. You're both too young to remember, but in 1904, the Santa Ana Fire Department purchased two retired racehorses, Dec and Dan, complete with harnesses to pull their new fire wagon. And Dorothy, your Uncle Monty was hired as the first full-time driver. My, how he loved those horses, and so did I.
Auntie Ethel, do you remember the first time you met Dec and Dan?
I certainly do. The first time I visited your father at the fire station, he introduced me to his two favorite partners. Dec and Dan were affectionate creatures. Dec nuzzled my neck, while Dan was more interested in finding out what was in my pocket. I promised him then that if he would spare my jacket, I would never visit again without a couple of juicy apples or a few carrots. Other ladies were less fortunate, though. Dan was known to nibble the artificial fruit right off the hats of the unwary.
I remember Father telling me that before Dec and Dan arrived, Mr. Fielding would unhitch his team of 3 white horses when he heard the fire bell alarm, leave his carriage in the street, and race to the firehouse to bring the hose cart to the fire.
Yes, in those days, the fire department was an entirely volunteer service, amounting to not much more than a bucket brigade. A hand-drawn pump cart was dragged to the side of the fire by the firemen. An exhausting business, but in 1904, everything was changing. Chief Young fabricated a new chemical engine hose cart in his blacksmith shop. They started to hire full-time professional firemen, and a new firehouse was completed. And those horses, the fire department was truly entering the 20th century in fine style.
It must have been thrilling to see the fire wagons speeding down the street, with the horses starting and tugging at their bits, and Father ringing the bell like crazy to warn everyone to stay out of the way.
When the fire alarm sounded, Dec and Dan were at their spots in a flash, dancing with excitement and ready to run.
How long did it take to teach them that?
Well, like people, it depended entirely on the horse. Some horses trained for as long as 2 years, but Dec and Dan learned in no time at all. Your father always said that horses needed to be treated kindly, taught by kindness to them promptly to their place and perform their part of the service.
I remember Father telling us that at a big fire, they would sometimes get so close that the paint on his helmet would start to melt from the heat. And he thought they would be afraid, but those brave horses never flinched.
Once, Dec was sick, so your father put him in a stall to recuperate. Well, a fire alarm sounded and he just about broke the stall to bits trying to get out. Those horses definitely had thoroughbred blood in them. Let them hear the sound of that fire alarm and all of the blood of the Kentucky ancestors woke up.
But one day, a new mechanized fire engine came to take the place of the fire horses. Father always said it was a sad day when they came to take Dec and Dan from the station and the men who had come to love them so dearly. He saw tears in the eyes of the many boys who knew the new apparatus in many ways would never take the place of Dec and Dan. But Auntie Ethel, what became of Dec and Dan when they were replaced by modern fire engines who were no longer needed?
Well, at first they were transferred to the street department. But all too often they would hear the sound of a fire alarm and come racing to their spots, ready for duty, but confused when the fire wagon was nowhere in sight. After that, they were sold to the French government to do their part in World War I. While they were being transported to France, a German torpedo struck the ship, and they were lost at sea. I tried not to cry, but it was no use. Your Uncle Monty and I were heartbroken. Heroic creatures to the end.
One million horses were sent to France between 1914 and 1918. Only 62,000 returned.
Black Beauty was written in 1877 by English author Anna Sewell in the last years of her life. Sewell died only 5 months after publication and living just long enough to see her only novel become a great success. Widely considered the most influential anti-animal cruelty book ever written, it's also one of the best-selling books of all time with over 50 million copies sold. The
following quote is taken from the book There Is No Religion Without Love. And people may talk as much as they like about their religion, but if it does not teach them to be good and to be kind man and beast, it is all shame. Monty and Ethel Jackson were both buried here in the Fairhaven Cemetery. Follow me, please.
Thank you.